The topic is a profile on Miss Emma Wisdom, and of course, Miss Wisdom, before we had our first commercial break, you were talking about your background, your education, and some other things that are important in terms of making you who you are. But let's talk about your major interest at this point, and that is the post-oak publications. And let's have you to talk about perhaps African Americans and African American females in publication and some of the other things that you think to be important. So that our audience might have some idea of what it means to be a publisher this morning.
First, let me say that 72% of all books bought in the United States in any given year are bought by females, okay? So I am right in the eye of the storm. I'm coming along at a really glorious time for women. And as far as publishing goes, we saw Terry McMillan meteorite rise to stardom as a writer with her book Disappearing Act. And from that, many clone, I hate to use that word, but that's what it has turned out to be, clone writers have been riding on that skirt tail. And that's nothing wrong with that, because I think what they're doing is doing their apprenticeship. And that's what's happened so often to writers, is that they don't believe that they need to do an apprenticeship. And that means that they might need to start small and build to that bestseller that they want. My company, Post Oak Publication, is there for those emerging writers who are sometimes I call them marginalized writers, who are good at what they do, but they just have not had an opportunity. And so with the merger of many of the big, what we call mainstream publishers, it is so much more difficult to get your stuff published. And if you're good, it doesn't mean that they turned it away because it was not good, but they turned it away because they just could not do it on their agenda that they had structured out for that particular company. So you then must look other places, and the other places now are being fulfilled, or filled rather, by what we call independent and small presses. I fit into that small press, that press that does 3 to 5 books, or maybe a few more, or 10, or maybe 20. So that is where Post Oak Publications is listed. But it will give some of those marginalized and emerging writers an opportunity to get their stuff in print. And from there, they can then attract a mainstream publisher, one who can pay the big royalties that we hear about, the Terry McMillan and the Toni Morrisons are able to attract for their work. So start small. Don't be afraid to do that, and look in the writer's market and find those alternative publishers that might give you an opportunity.
So, and it's rare to, on the first book, to produce a Pulitzer Prize or anything, even though that might not be unheard of, but you're saying that there has to be an apprenticeship of writing and whatnot.
Yeah, 60,000 books are done each year. And of that 60,000, many of them are being done by small presses. So if you know that you can't break into that market right off, is to do your apprenticeship and do it with a small press. Continue to write those magazine articles, continue to put out, if you're a poet, those chapbooks, because those things are building blocks to making it to the mainstream publisher. I have an interesting story. I hope we have time for me to tell it. I'm getting ready to publish a book of poetry by Professor Catherine Bryant, who is an instructor at Tennessee State University. Well, Dr. Bryant was at one time my English literature teacher. And so she has been my teacher, my mentor, and my friend. But now I am her publisher. And so we have developed a relationship. And I probably could have done my bachelor's degree earlier if I could have just stuck and stayed in an English literature class. But I signed up about 3 times and said, oh, I can't deal with this period in literature. and dropped the class. Well, the third time or the fourth time I signed up for it, Dr. Bryant was the teacher. And I vividly remember her coming in dressed all in green. My first impression is that this is a throwback to the 60s period. You know, here's a real hippie. And I might can stick through this English lit class with this teacher. And it turned out that I did and got a good grade out of the class and was able to go forward with my plans to graduate. But I am doing a book of poetry, should be out in November, that she has written called Thawing. And I'm very, delighted to do that and to be working again with her.
Is the publishing business quite expensive to become involved in, Ms. Wisdom?
Yes.
It is. It's just quite.
No one told me that I needed to have wealth before I went into publishing.
It's that way, though.
Well, if you think about the production side of it, what it takes in doing a book. A paperback is, you can do a paperback that can run you in the low thousands, but if you did a hardback, you're talking about some more money to do it. And not only that, but then you need to put some marketing dollars behind it, because it does no good to publish a book and not let the public know that it exists. So a lot of your funds go to production, and then a lot of it goes to marketing that book.
And it's generally easier for those larger companies to have a better marketing strategy, you would say, than the smaller companies.
Of course, they got deep pockets, so they can put $100,000 behind an author's book and send that author on a 20-city tour. But if you are with an independent or small publisher, about 5 to 6 is about the max that a small publisher could manage to send an author out. But one of the great things that has happened in recent 10 years has been the small printer who can do what we call short runs, where you can test market a book to see how well it's going to do in the marketplace before you plunge thousands of dollars in it. And so I have now started doing that, doing short runs, test marketing the book to see how well it's going to do before putting a lot of money behind it.
Very good. And of course, Ms. Wisdom, we're coming up for our second commercial break for today, after which we'll come back and we'll give you an opportunity to wrap up the show for today. But I think that is the information that we want, and I think that what you've said has certainly encouraged some of the folks who might be interested in becoming involved in publication. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break.